At its peak, Blockbuster wasn't just a video rental company. It was an empire. Its blue and yellow stores were everywhere. For millions of people, Friday night meant one thing. Walk into Blockbuster. Pick a movie. Take it home. And hope you remembered to return it on time. Blockbuster had thousands of stores across the world. Its brand was so powerful that renting a movie without Blockbuster almost felt impossible. The company had built an enormous physical network. Stores. Employees. Customers. And billions of dollars in revenue. It looked like the perfect business. But hidden inside that success was a weakness. A weakness that a tiny company called Netflix was about to discover. And Blockbuster never saw it coming. So how did Blockbuster build an empire? It started with a simple idea. Make renting movies easy. In 1985, Blockbuster entered the video rental business. And it quickly did something its competitors struggled to do. It standardized the experience. Instead of walking into a small, crowded video store with a limited selection, customers could enter a large, organized store filled with movies. The blue and yellow brand became impossible to miss. And Blockbuster didn't stop at one store. It expanded. Then expanded again. And again. The strategy was simple. Put a Blockbuster close to as many customers as possible. More stores meant more customers. More customers meant more rentals. More rentals meant more revenue. And more revenue could finance even more expansion. Blockbuster had created a machine. A machine built on physical stores, massive inventory and customer habits. By 2004, Blockbuster had around 9,000 stores worldwide. At that point, it wasn't just a video rental company anymore. It was the standard. And when you're the standard, it's easy to believe the world will keep playing by your rules. But how did Blockbuster actually make money? The answer was surprisingly simple. Customers rented movies. They paid a rental fee. They came back. And they rented again. Every store was a machine designed to turn movie inventory into recurring revenue. But there was another source of money. One that customers hated. Late fees. If you kept a movie beyond the agreed rental period, you could pay extra. And for Blockbuster, those fees were far from insignificant. In 2004, Blockbuster's CEO estimated that late fees contributed between $250 and $300 million to operating income. That's a lot of money to give up. But the model had another advantage. Blockbuster owned thousands of physical locations. Customers didn't have to wait for a movie to arrive. They could walk into a store, pick a title, and take it home immediately. Convenience created habit. Habit created repeat customers. And repeat customers created predictable revenue. On paper, the model looked incredibly strong. But there was a problem. Every part of that machine was built around the physical store. And the next revolution in entertainment wouldn't need one. While Blockbuster was building thousands of stores, something very different was happening online. A small company was trying to change the way people rented movies. Its name was Netflix. Founded in 1997, Netflix didn't have thousands of stores. It didn't have huge parking lots. It didn't have employees standing behind rental counters across America. It had something much smaller. A website. And an idea. What if you didn't have to drive to a store to rent a movie? What if the movie could simply come to you? In 1998, Netflix launched an online DVD rental service. Customers could browse movies on the internet and have DVDs delivered directly to their homes. It was a completely different experience. But Netflix understood something important. Convenience wasn't only about being close to the customer. It was about removing friction. No trip to the store. No searching through crowded shelves. And eventually, no late fees. In 1999, Netflix introduced a subscription model with no due dates and no late fees. Instead of making customers feel punished for keeping a movie too long, Netflix gave them freedom. And then came an even bigger idea. A flat monthly subscription. Watch. Return. Get another movie. Repeat. Netflix wasn't trying to build thousands of stores. It was trying to build a completely different machine. And Blockbuster was about to meet that machine face to face. In the year 2000, something extraordinary happened. Netflix walked into Blockbuster's headquarters. And Netflix wasn't there to compete. At least, not yet. The company was struggling. It was still small. And it was looking for a way to survive. Netflix proposed a deal. Blockbuster could acquire the company. The price? Around $50 million. Today, that number sounds almost absurd. Because Netflix would eventually become one of the most valuable entertainment companies in the world. But in 2000, Netflix wasn't a global giant. It was a risky little startup built around DVDs and the internet. Blockbuster, on the other hand, was already a household name. Thousands of stores. Millions of customers. Massive revenue. From Blockbuster's perspective, Netflix looked tiny. And that's where the story becomes complicated. The famous version says Blockbuster simply laughed at Netflix and walked away. But the real story is more nuanced. The meeting involved discussions about a possible partnership and acquisition. And Blockbuster ultimately did not buy Netflix. The opportunity was gone. Netflix survived. And the company that had been offered for roughly $50 million would eventually become the company Blockbuster could no longer ignore. The most expensive mistake wasn't necessarily saying no to Netflix. It was failing to understand what Netflix was becoming. Netflix had survived. But survival wasn't enough. The company needed a business model that could scale. And that's when Netflix started changing the game. Instead of making money every time a customer rented a movie, Netflix moved towards something much more predictable. A subscription. Customers paid every month. They could receive DVDs by mail. Return them. And receive another one. No trips to the store. No late fees. And no pressure to return a movie on a specific day. But Netflix had another weapon. Data. Every movie customers rented told Netflix something about what they liked. And Netflix could use that information to recommend what they should watch next. The company wasn't just delivering movies. It was learning its customers. And the more customers Netflix gained, the more data it collected. The more data it collected, the better its recommendations could become. Netflix was slowly building a business that became smarter as it grew. Then technology started moving even faster. Broadband internet was spreading. Computers were becoming more powerful. And watching video online was becoming increasingly realistic. Netflix saw what was coming. The future wouldn't just be about sending movies through the mail. Eventually, the movie itself could travel through the internet. And that would change everything. By 2007, Netflix was no longer the tiny startup Blockbuster had once ignored. It had millions of customers, a massive DVD by mail operation, and something much more important: a vision of what entertainment could become. Netflix understood that the internet was changing. Broadband was becoming faster. More homes were getting connected. And digital video was becoming possible at scale. So Netflix made a decision that would change the entertainment industry forever. It entered the streaming business. Instead of waiting for a DVD to arrive in the mailbox, customers could watch content directly over the internet. No store. No envelope. No waiting. Just press play. It was still early. The technology wasn't perfect. The catalog wasn't unlimited. And streaming wasn't yet the dominant way people watched movies. But Netflix understood something Blockbuster was struggling to see. The real product wasn't the DVD. The real product was entertainment. And if technology could deliver that entertainment instantly, the physical DVD would eventually become a limitation. Netflix was no longer competing for a place inside the video rental industry. It was trying to replace the industry itself. And now Blockbuster had a serious problem. Because its biggest competitor wasn't opening more stores. It was making stores less necessary. Blockbuster finally understood the threat. And this time, it couldn't ignore Netflix. The company had a choice: defend the old business, or destroy parts of it to build the new one. Blockbuster chose to fight. It launched an online DVD rental service. It began eliminating late fees. And it started investing heavily in digital technology. For the first time, Blockbuster was fighting Netflix on its own battlefield. But there was a problem. Blockbuster wasn't starting from zero. It had thousands of stores, thousands of employees, expensive leases, massive physical infrastructure, and a business model designed around people walking through the front door. Netflix had no such burden. Netflix could focus almost entirely on the future. Blockbuster had to protect the past while building the future. And that created a dangerous contradiction. Every dollar invested in digital could weaken the old business. But every dollar spent protecting the old business could make the company slower to adapt. Blockbuster was trapped between two worlds. The old world was still generating money. The new world was growing. And the company had to decide which one mattered more. Because sometimes the hardest business decision isn't knowing what the future looks like. It's having the courage to sacrifice what made you successful in the past. Blockbuster was fighting back. But fighting Netflix came at a cost. The company was now trying to operate two businesses at the same time. The old business was built around thousands of physical stores. The new business required technology, online infrastructure, and a completely different customer experience. And transforming a company of that size wasn't cheap. Blockbuster had to invest in its online strategy while its traditional business was already under pressure. At the same time, competition was getting stronger. Netflix was growing. Redbox was expanding with automated DVD kiosks. And consumers were getting more comfortable with digital entertainment. Blockbuster's problem wasn't that it had no customers. The problem was that its customers were changing. The world was moving from physical ownership and rental toward convenience and access. And every year that passed made the transition more urgent. Blockbuster tried to respond. It removed late fees. It invested in online rentals. It experimented with new digital strategies. But the company was carrying something Netflix didn't have. A massive physical footprint. Thousands of stores meant thousands of costs. Rent. Employees. Maintenance. Inventory. And all of those costs had to be paid whether customers walked through the door or not. Netflix was building a lighter model. Blockbuster was trying to transform a heavy one. And then came another problem. Debt. Blockbuster's financial position made it even harder to invest aggressively in the future. The company wasn't just fighting Netflix anymore. It was fighting its own balance sheet. And that's when the story stopped being about innovation alone. It became a financial survival story. By the end of the 2000s, the battle was no longer about who could rent more movies. It was about who controlled the future of entertainment. And Netflix was winning. Blockbuster still had thousands of stores. But the economics of those stores were becoming harder and harder to justify. Customers were changing. Technology was changing. And the cost of maintaining the old model remained. In 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. The company that had once dominated the video rental industry was now fighting for survival. Stores began disappearing. Employees lost their jobs. And an empire that once seemed permanent became a memory. Meanwhile, Netflix continued moving in the opposite direction. From DVDs to streaming. From a rental company to a global entertainment platform. And eventually, almost every major entertainment company would be forced to follow the same digital path. The irony is that Blockbuster had seen the threat. It had launched an online service. It had removed late fees. It had invested in digital technology. But seeing the future isn't enough. You have to be able to move fast enough to reach it. Blockbuster's greatest weakness wasn't simply that Netflix was smarter. It was that Blockbuster had too much of the past attached to it. Too many stores. Too many fixed costs. Too much infrastructure built for a world that was disappearing. And that's the lesson every investor and entrepreneur should remember. Success can become a trap. The business that made you rich today can become the very thing that prevents you from winning tomorrow. Netflix didn't destroy Blockbuster overnight. Technology didn't destroy Blockbuster overnight. Blockbuster slowly became incompatible with the future. And that may be the most dangerous way for a company to die. Not by losing everything at once. But by becoming irrelevant one customer at a time. So here's the question. What successful company today is ignoring the small competitor that could define tomorrow? Because the next Blockbuster may already exist. You just haven't recognized it yet. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Powered by Finance. Because in business, the biggest risk isn't always losing money. Sometimes it's refusing to change. And remember, study the past before it becomes your future.